This part 1 video provides answers to objections recently raised by my church about my claim of being a prophet on my religion website www.churchofgodmessage.com. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. A few days ago, my life was thrown into turmoil because my local church pastor emailed me objecting to my claim on my religion website in the section about Harmanjit Saini that describes me personally as owner of the website that I have been appointed to the office of a prophet. It also reminded me of the email also reminded me of a letter given to me a few years ago by my then local pastor that stated, "You're not recognized as a prophet by the United Church of God." The church is organized with a council of elders that appoints a church president to handle the executive function of the church. At that time, there was a different man as president. Though that letter was given to me, I was still allowed to continue attending church. I was also not forced to make changes to my website to remove the claim statements that were found objectionable. However, there have been recent organizational changes and a new president was appointed. Perhaps the church has decided to force the issue and raised objection in greater detail in an email to me on November 18, 2022, quoting my statements on the website. In this video, I provide answers to these objections. These are the objections raised on my statements. Number 1. Satan appears to have informed the Germans that I have been appointed to the office of a prophet. Number 2. In 2001, after reading the booklet Who is That Prophet, written by Gerald Flurry of the Philadelphia Church of God, I began to suspect that Satan revealed to the Germans about the exact office I had been appointed to, which was a prophet like Moses as stated in Deuteronomy 18 verses 18 to 19. Number 3, objection was also raised to my statement that I had been appointed as a prophet by God. Number 4, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. USA Eastern Standard Time, I read a 40 to 60 minute message in English from my computer. On my website, I make the claim that Satan and the demons had started broadcasting my thoughts in or around 2001 at the request of the Germans. Since they were broadcasting my thoughts, they would also have to broadcast my messages. From December 2, 2006 to July 14, 2007, they broadcast my messages. With the July 14 message, I had completed my messages of warning to the world. Satan and the demons then stopped broadcasting my messages, but since then, God's angels have been broadcasting them to every human being on earth in his or her own language. Then the following objection statement was given. Herman, it appears that out of all the people on earth, you think God has elevated you to the office of a prophet, yet you offer no proof. As followers of Christ, we are told to prove all things. I see absolutely no evidence that you've been selected by God with the office you claim. The chances are much greater for individuals to be a false prophet, stated in Ezekiel 13 verse 3, "Woe to the foolish prophets who follow their own spirit and have seen nothing." And then Matthew 24:11, "Then many false prophets shall rise up and deceive many." Then I was reminded that a few years back the local pastor had given me in writing that you are not recognized as a prophet in the church. Then the following further objection statement was given in the email. You have not followed through on what the local pastor stated. On your website, you also claim to be a member of United Church of God, while stating things that are beyond reality. What Christian would proclaim that the demons and angels have proclaimed their gospel message, or who would dare utter every human being on earth in his or her own language has heard my message in their mind? God says, "By your fruits," and I have not seen any fruit that your words have validity. Since then, I've had a meeting with the local pastor. Here are my answers to those objections and proof or lack thereof for my claims. In part 2 video, I will describe more answers and my next course of action. One of the big problems I have faced in my life is that most people do not communicate with me directly in words but in signals. After a person signals something to me, I am left with the unenviable task of figuring out what he was signaling. I cannot offer any proof about what someone meant with a signal. That person simply did not communicate any words to me. Now, this is how it all started in the United States with the unique occurrences in my life that have put me in the public's eye. I was a PhD student at Northwestern University from 1982 to 1984. At that time, I had diagnosed the so called free trade as the cause of America's economic problems and voiced my opinions often. I also proposed a managed economy rather than a laissez faire economy and developed a model of economic development and international trade which is now accepted around the world. Now, Americans of German ancestry, whom I call German masqueraders, knew how dangerous such views could be to them in Germany. They decided that they could not let me become a tenured professor railing against free trade for decades to come. So they forced me out of the PhD program by four of the most senior professors telling me that no one in the department would work with me on my dissertation, which was the only requirement left for completing my PhD. They also stopped my scholarship. Then I tried getting a job through the placement office at Northwestern University. Some persons in my church had some contacts at Northwestern. They told Northwestern professors about our church's views at that time that energetically discouraged interracial dating and marriage. One particular Chicago minister, whom I now know as a German masquerader, has doggedly tried to prevent me from even coming close to marrying a white woman in the United States. My guess is that he could have twisted the church's teaching to mean that I should not be allowed to marry a white woman under any circumstances since I am an Indian. Therefore, people at Northwestern made sure that I would not get a job in order to prevent me from marrying a white girl. I got a marketing research job at NFO Research on my own initiative and did good work for 3 months. But one of the managers lived in Evanston, Illinois, where Northwestern is located, and inquired about me. When he learned about the reason I had not been able to get a good job at Northwestern, he had me kicked out of NFO Research after just 3 months. Then I got into the computer software business to automate export operations in collaboration with a church member. I struggled at it for 3 years but brought it to the level where sales were about to explode. I had already sold the package to Fortune 500 companies such as Miller Brewing, SC Johnson and Son, and Johnson Controls. I had also begun plotting my next moves, which was to hire computer programmers from India who were being paid $3 to $5 per hour in India, pay them $25 to $30 per hour, and place them in US companies at 50 to 75 per hour and make huge profits. Of course, German masqueraders got wind of it and went to work immediately to persuade and force my business partner to break our agreement. I took a 3-week vacation trip in 87 to India. When I came back, my business partner presented me with an agreement in which I would become a mere commission salesman at 25% commission for the company. Obviously, I could not accept such terms. That ended my business venture when the business was on the verge of realizing $10 to $15 million in sales. German masqueraders then used my business idea to set up their Indian allies in the business. Such businesses include Tata Consultancy Services, Infosys, Wipro, which now boast market capitalization in the tens of billions of dollars. German masqueraders then had to portray me as mentally retarded so that they could state that I could not have come up with any worthwhile business idea in case I sued them for destroying my business. To this day, they continue to use the same strategy regularly when they want to cut me down to size and prevent me from earning a decent living. I then assessed my situation and again tried getting jobs. I had proved my sales capabilities and IBM was already familiar with them. I applied to IBM for a sales job. During the interview, I advised IBM to get into consulting services. That led to the formation of IBM's consulting division. That is IBM's main business today. But IBM did not give me a job to prevent me from marrying a white woman at church. Then I got into accounting and consulting for small and startup businesses. I took the CPA exam and scored very high marks. I applied to the big four accounting firms and then to the second tier and even third tier accounting firms for a job, but no one offered me one to prevent me from marrying a white woman. So I continued with my accounting and consulting practice. Even in that business, masqueraders continued to drive clients away from me with threats of persuasion and made sure that I barely survived. I've described all this to show that my interest in life has always been to achieve success in the business world. I've always been a lay member of God's church and never had a desire for a ministerial position or to become a preacher. Then in 1990, Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait and annexed it to Iraq. I advised the USA government to not take any unilateral action but to first build a coalition through the United Nations. That way, no one would accuse the United States of being an international bully. My advice has been followed ever since and has proved to be very sound. That's when I believe Satan revealed to the Germans that I had been appointed to the office of a prophet. Now, Satan is a liar and the Germans are also liars. But a liar succeeds because he mixes lies with the truth. So I don't know if Satan and the Germans are lying or telling the truth, whether I had been appointed to the office of a prophet or not. In fact, nobody told me that the Germans were telling the world that I had been appointed to the office of a prophet. I had not even guessed that this is what the Germans were telling the world, but I felt something significant was circulating around. Therefore, I have no way of proving that the Germans revealed this to the world or not. Only they can verify its veracity. Therefore, I cannot provide proof for the statement on my website that the Germans revealed to the world that I had been called to the office of a prophet. Again, I had no interest in the ministry or preaching, nor am I interested in being called a prophet or apostle that Gerald Flurry, head of the Philadelphia Church of God, and David Pack, head of the Restored Church of God, hanker after. Therefore, I am willing to take off such statements from my website. Now, I believe my advice to use the United Nations made me known in United Nations circles and through the United Nations and nations around the world because of their representatives, including the US government. Since I was still struggling to make a decent living, I applied for federal government jobs in the Commerce, International Trade Administration, and state departments. Again, I believe I was not offered a job to prevent me from marrying a white woman. Then an additional factor was added to the mix. Because of prophecies about the military defeat of the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and Israel at the hands of a German led European alliance, I was put under constant 24/7, 365 days electronic surveillance by the US government, like Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, founder of the modern era of God's Church, known earlier as the Worldwide Church of God, had been subjected to. During all this time, being called a prophet meant nothing to me or even preaching. My only interest in life was making a decent living, which continued to elude me and continues to elude me even today. Because I became well known throughout the United States and in leadership circles around the world, and I was monitored 24/7, many journalists from the early 1990s onwards got to know me. They too learned that I was not being given a decent job to prevent me from marrying a white woman. A few of them are still alive and well today and should be able to vouch for this fact. Judy Woodruff of PBS NewsHour and Tom Brokaw, former NBC News anchor, come to mind, who would know this and verify this information. And of course, Judy Woodruff would have talked to the younger generation of uh, uh, news people in their news journalists in their organization, so they would know. Then, beginning in 1994, some new developments took place. An angel communicated to me that Sainis of India are Jews, which meant that I was a Jew. For some months, I was afraid to communicate that message to anyone because we had been taught by Mr. Armstrong that there are no prophets alive today like the Old Testament to whom God communicates through the angels or by his own voice. Any individual who makes such claims of communication from God's angels is probably lying, or demons are communicating with him. But after some months of thinking about the situation, I was quite sure that the message had been communicated to me through God's angel, because two contrasting kinds of beings were present when that message was communicated. One of the beings had a taunting tone, whom I knew would be a demon, whereas the other one appeared to be genuinely thrilled to communicate that message to me. Overall, 10 messages have been delivered to me by angels. The demonic being was present for the first 3 messages only. Only a few days ago, I realized why the demonic being was present. It was to make me realize that the message genuinely came from God because of what Mr. Armstrong had taught in the church, and so that I would be believed. I am simply giving you the honest record here. The second event that began to take place was that apparently my face began to shine at times in public places which people saw. This occurred perhaps a dozen times. Nobody to date has told me that this happened. So obviously I did not see the phenomenon, as I cannot see my own face. So I am guessing that this is what happened based on the reactions of people in front of me who witnessed the phenomenon. It is for other people to confirm whether this is true or not. Then in 1998, another event took place. Apparently, God or a spirit being communicated to the late Queen Elizabeth II that I was also a descendant of King David. To date, I have no way of proving that this is true because no one has told me verbally that this happened. Over the years, I've had to guess that this is what occurred. Now, this message was important for 2 reasons. One is that it corroborated the first message to me by an angel that Saini are Jews. It also gave incontrovertible proof that angels had indeed delivered messages to me. The second reason is that it requires a leader in God's church to be a descendant of King David or a Jew in fulfillment of God's promise to Judah in Genesis 49 verse 10, which states, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his teeth, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be." The scepter promise is being fulfilled to this day in King Charles III of England, while the separate promise of lawgiver has been fulfilled through the centuries in other descendants of King David heading God's church. Now, around 2000, further developments took place. I used to attend Bible studies once a week at the home of a church member who once said that Satan and the demons and angels cannot read our thoughts. I disagreed with him and voiced my opinion. Then apparently the Germans asked Satan whether they could read human thoughts. Satan confirmed that they could. Therefore, they asked Satan and the demons to broadcast my thoughts 24/7. Around the same time, another development took place. I believe at the request of the Germans, Satan and the demons started broadcasting my thoughts because the Germans wanted access to my business ideas. The reason was that I had suggested the use of mathematics to improve computer software. IBM used the idea to improve the performance of their software and computer chips also. It led to a massive enhancement in the performance of personal computers. This development stunned the Germans. However, with the help of German masqueraders, particularly from the masquerader Lou Gerstner, IBM's CEO, they learned that it was my suggestion to use mathematics that had resulted in much improved performance of personal computers. So this was another very strong reason for them to ask Satan to broadcast my thoughts to get access to my business ideas. I believe Satan obliged, and that's why my thoughts are broadcast by them. Now, this is one of the claims to which strong objections have been raised for 2 reasons. I have no way of providing proof that Satan and the demons broadcast my thoughts. It's for other people, and particularly the Germans, to verify the accuracy of their statements. Also, I have no control over it. I have prayed to God to stop, that the demons would stop broadcasting my thoughts, but I believe it still continues. The second objection is that they reason that I am dealing with demons. But I disagree with that objection because I have no control over it. I have never sought contact with demons or tried to communicate with them, though I have dealt with them, but not of my own choosing. Another development took place around 1999 to 2000 when the terrible atrocities committed by German masqueraders were fully discovered, including the 5 to 6 million whites of non German ancestry they had cremated alive in electric crematoriums, and the 3 to 4 million they had medically murdered or in other ways, and the 30 to 40 million abortions of white babies they had forced with threats. That's when I began to put two and two together and realize the hand German masqueraders and the Germans have had in my life in the United States, and even before that in India through their Indian allies. I know Satan's character from the Bible. Germans have fully imbibed his character. Because I have been their victim since the age of 10, I have become extremely sensitive to their deeds and can quickly piece together information to discover their hand in various events in my life and around the world based on how they operate. That sixth sense, developed over 6 decades, enables me to analyze world events and share them on my YouTube and Facebook channels, which I believe have a worldwide following. Then, because of the changes in doctrines that had been made in Worldwide Church of God, I felt I could no longer stay in that church. So I joined the Philadelphia Church of God in 2001. That's when Gerald Flurry wrote his book, Who is That Prophet? After reading that book, I guessed for the first time in 2001 that the Germans might have told the world that I had been called to the office of a prophet about 11 years after they learned it from Satan. Again, this is speculation on my part because nobody has told me the Germans said so. Even then, Satan and the Germans could have lied about it, though I cannot see any motive for them doing so. That's why I accepted it as truth. Now, Who is That Prophet is a detailed book. I immediately saw that some of the scriptures could have applied to me based on the experiences I've had. I also guessed that the office I had been called to might have been a prophet like Moses as mentioned in Deuteronomy 18 verses 18 to 19, which state, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto you, meaning like unto Moses, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. Again, these are my guesses because I have not seen any of the phenomena I have described, and nobody has verbally told me about them. I cannot provide any proof as the objections in the email to me demand. Therefore, it is not for me to determine whether I have been called to the office of a prophet or a prophet like Moses or not. It is for the church and other people to make that determination. I have faithfully provided the evidence. If people determine that the communications I claim indeed happened, and whether they were from angels or demons, it's now for other people to make that determination and reach a conclusion. While from Gerald Flurry's book I guessed that the office I had been appointed to might be a prophet like Moses, I simply did not accept it. The reasons are described in my website as follows, and it is also one of the objections raised to my claim. My website states, while Satan may have informed the world that I had been appointed to the office of a prophet like Moses, as Mr. Armstrong had been appointed to the office of a prophet like Elijah, as stated in Matthew 17 verses 10 to 11, I was reluctant to accept the idea. The reason simply was that the Bible said Jesus Christ himself had fulfilled that prophecy and the office of a prophet like Moses. Peter said so in Acts 3 verses 20 to 23. And that he, that is God the Father, may send Jesus Christ, who was preached to you before, whom heaven must receive until the times of restoration of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. For Moses truly said to the fathers, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. Him you shall hear in all things, whatever he says to you. And it shall be that every soul who will not hear that prophet shall be utterly destroyed from among the people. Stephen the martyr also confirmed the same about Jesus Christ being that prophet like Moses in Acts 7 verse 37. This is that Moses who said to the children of Israel, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. Him you shall hear." This is that Moses who said to the children of Israel, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. Him you shall hear." Now, I mulled the idea over for 9 years before I finally accepted it in 2010. What led to my acceptance was the realization that the role of Elijah the prophet had been fulfilled 3 times. Once by the original Elijah, second time by John the Baptist before the first coming of Jesus Christ, then by Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong before the second coming of Jesus Christ. Then I realized that the role of a prophet like Moses also was to have a threefold fulfillment. Once by the original Moses, second time by Jesus Christ himself, and finally a third time before the return of Jesus Christ to earth. So the world knew about the office I had been appointed to by God, 11 years before I knew about it and 20 years before I accepted it as true. So I'm simply laying out the record for others to weigh the evidence and determine whether I fulfill the office of a prophet or not. I believe I do. I'm not going to lie about it. I will not lie to enhance my status in the eyes of others, as we have seen Gerald Flurry of the Philadelphia Church and David Pack of the Restored Church of God do. It does not matter to me whether I hold the office of a prophet or not. I am simply going to go on living my life as is and continue doing the work I do without interruption. And part 2 of the video, I will discuss more, I'll provide more answers and what will be my next course of action. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook channels Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini to view and get information on the latest videos.